Chris and AJ, we're just gonna unplug the owl and plug it back in. Click. All right, Chris and AJ, can you guys hear us and see us?
Yep. Yes, on both fronts.
We're live on YouTube.
Thank you.
All right. Without further ado, I will call to order this meeting of the Grand County Budget Advisory Board. It's 8:35 a.m. today on October 24th. A little early start time today at 8:30 a.m. I believe at 10. Just wanted to make sure we had enough time to get things in here before I had to leave. Those present here, members of the board present here are Winfield, Martinez, Hedin, Hackwell, and online we have Throgmorton and Kaufman, as well as myself, Wojtek, and Lindsay. So we'll move right along here in the agenda and consider approval of minutes from October 10th and 17th. We held off on approving October 10th just so we could have more of our board here to potentially review those. And yeah, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes from October 10 and 17. Motion by Martinez. Do I have a second?
Second.
And second by Hackwell. All right, so I will call for a vote. All those voting in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
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 You vote unanimously. So we'll move right on into our presentation section of the meeting. And we're going to start off with the Moab Office of Tourism and Moab to Monument Valley. My computer and the Moab to Monument Valley Film Commission, and I'll let you all sort out. I suppose Biga, we have Biga Metzner here, the film commissioner. We also have Ali Harford here, who is the associate Office of Tourism director. Sorry if I butchered that title. And so yeah, I guess as the way this budget displays, the first category is the film commission. So I might suggest that Biga lead off and give an overview of the Film Commission's proposed 2026 budget. Of course, you'll want to point out any significant changes from previous years, and also just give us any detail that you think is particularly relevant regarding the 2026 budget.
Okay. Hi, good morning, everyone. Nice to see you. So a lot of lines from last year I just moved over, and then there's things that I've noticed in the few years that I've been doing this that amounts have changed. And in the work that's been coming in through the Film Commission that's related to TRT taxes, it's felt like it would be good to up certain amounts of things in order to continue to bring the film jobs into the area. So I put together support material with line by line for each thing that the Film Commission is requesting. And I've also requested a salary adjustment for the Film Commission director, as well as potentially having a position added for a part-time person. Those numbers would need to be reviewed and had been given to HR to go over. I also gave HR a couple pages of comparables, comparisons for other film commissions across the United States and in the state of Utah. So those numbers had been put in the previous draft. They are now in the yellow line for the estimate of what the request would be. Also, in addition to that, there is a request for a dedicated film commission vehicle to be used for scouting and for taking people out on scouts and also for taking photos and for travel, because we've had one vehicle that is okay, that's part of the Moab Office of Tourism, and then a second one that is not really usable. And I have found that we've had some conflict in having the ability to for me to be able to go out and do the things that I need to do with the film crews that come into town. So yeah, I mean, how best to do this, if you want to go line by line, or what works, or, you know, or if you have any questions based on, you guys have seen these numbers before in the past couple things. The Moab Tourism Advisory Board has gone over these with us, or with me, and they have put out a letter saying that they recommend all of the numbers that I have put in. So that's you know, big plus in the world of the MTAB board, and the money now comes from a different place. It's out of 3A, which hadn't been in years past. So that's promotion, and the film commission, I'd say, you know, pretty much 100% of what the film commission is promoting this place as a filming location for people, and brings in a fair amount of revenue that is outside of normal civilian tourism.
Thank you. I'll just point out, yeah, I'll just sort of highlight a couple things that you said. And so there are some figures here for a salary adjustment for the director that is in the comments here at 115.5. And then there's also in the comments here, there's a suggested or an estimated 53,000 roughly for an additional part-time staff, and that's in the comments. And so we just have a uniform procedure for considering new positions and reclassifications. And the HR director will give a brief an overview of what will be looked at by the commission next week. But you know, I wanted to make sure that data was included, but just following the same procedure as all of the budgets that we've seen. But I hope that you can get enough support to be able to support your operations and make those improvements.
Also not included in here in the notes that I gave in last night were just that there is an additional $5,000 that is requested of San Juan County annually to come in, so that is not reflected in the budget, and that has been invoiced and will be arriving. And then on top of that, for some of the events that I've put on, I've just awarded 2 separate $1,000 sponsorships for Cinemoab that's going to be on November 15th, plus an additional $500 that I just found out last night from the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity. So that's $2,500 of donation/sponsorships that the film commission is receiving to do these outside events that are community, and also they bring in people from outside and put heads in beds as well.
And for the new vehicle that you're proposing, do you recall what line that's being?
Yeah, it was
proposed
the
in the truck?
15,000, it was the 15,600,
Great.
which is on line, it's just
300 equipment
300, yeah.
lease, yeah.
Equipment lease 300, yes.
So yeah, there can be a potential option between about sort of an outright buy or a lease.
And I've been in conversations with Jason from the roads department, as I had in the past with Cody when he was doing it, to get actual lease agreements that they do through their lease people to see the type of vehicle. I'm also in conversations with actual Ford about possibly doing a collaborative thing with them for this, but that's up in the air.
Great, and I see this supporting material and all this detailed breakout. I just love this. I can't tell you how much I appreciate this level of detail. This is what we'd like to see for everyone. Thank you. And I'll make sure to add, I actually didn't notice the other tabs, and I will add these to the packet, and they'll be included for the record as part of your budget general presentation. Thank you for that. And as you mentioned, I'm sure at the Tourism Advisory Board meeting that took place on the 14th, that there was probably, if anyone is interested, probably watching back at that meeting, we'll offer more detail and discussion regarding both of these budgets that we're looking at today.
Yeah.
Um,
We kind of went through line by line-ish and through the support materials that you're showing now that have literally, have pretty much everything that the film commission pays, and then sometimes things get added on, or events or travel. For festivals and things like that, sometimes they switch out to something else, but
Great. Any questions or comments from the board regarding the film commissioner's proposed 2026 budget?
As far as the salary, I mean, I guess for me, when I look back at 23, and then I look at your proposal for 26, I mean, that is a huge jump in salary. And I guess I'm trying to think about just consistency overall in the county, right? And just, people getting COLAs and moving up via benchmarks, et cetera, and so on. And so I struggle with this. So this number, the 115, is the proposal?
Yeah.
Okay.
it's a proposal.
Okay, so again, my issue is just that, to me, we want to treat all employees kind of consistently across the board and moving up as far as salary. So I'm just gonna say that. And then, just a number of these, and I know you have them outlined further, and I appreciate that. Just looking at like the actual, so for example, merchandise for the actuals was 99 here, and then, so they're basically, a lot of these are doubling or fivefold when I look at marketing, and I guess I just want to hear your justification for that.
We're not to the end of the year yet, and
Right.
there's numbers that haven't been spent. I'm almost out of the merchandise that I do give to film crew, so I have another order that I'm trying to
Okay.
design.
Uh-huh.
Same for travel stuff. I'm still going to London, and there's other events that I'm going to that haven't been taken out of travel. Travel's already gone over by a fair amount this year, and same for conferences and sponsorships. There's just there's lines that I know more money needs to be could easily be available so that it could be used and not have to be moved from from a different line item that isn't as often used. Yeah, I mean, there's just still, I know we are already in middle of October, but for me, it's not quite even
Okay.
there.
Okay,
And in
Your
relation to the
actuals.
salary, the actuals just aren't
okay,
the actual. And
Okay.
then in relation to the salary stuff, I absolutely hear what you're saying. Again, I have, two pages of comps that I pulled together from the work that I do and from film commissioners across the United States and the globe. And I recognize the work that I've been doing is as a director, but it has never actually been paid out as a salary of a director. And I know that I'm not the head of a department of my own, but I work as a one-woman show doing the job of what another film commission might have 4 or 5 people doing. So in-house, I am doing all of my own PR, all of my own ad and graphic design work, all of my own social media, everything, the travel, like all of the parts as one person. And that's where the request for an assistant comes in, but that's really kind of for more of the paperwork, data, recovery, and all the other parts that, I've done as one human, and I'm happy to continue to do, and I will. I'm not going anywhere, but I'm trying to, feel like it's like the work that I put in the hours, which are not, they're not a 40-hour work week ever. And I don't get overtime, and, yeah, so the request and the recommendation, that it's not a solid number.
would you mind with the comps, could you email us some of those comps so that we have an understanding of,
Yeah,
that'd be great.
and it's just based on my research, and I understand that HR also tries to do that, and in years past, I've done this before with our previous HR person, and, they say, what's, like, well, in the state of Utah, what else exists like this, and there isn't. You know,
Right.
so in this, in the United States, what
Yeah.
else exists like
Yeah,
this? Well,
I was thinking the
here we
same thing,
go,
right?
you know, we're
Like
talking about,
simpler,
you
yeah.
know, so I'm talking about like using the numbers from the state office, you know, and that rate is at 100, or close to 130,000, this, so, you know,
Yeah, if
So
you
I'm happy to
could,
send
yeah,
this.
if you could send us some of that, that would help me, and just ingest it a little bit more.
sure.
You know, again, like I'm coming from just this holistic view of the county and county employees. Okay,
Totally
that was it for
understood.
me.
Commissioner Winfield?
Yeah, Big, I have a couple questions and, I think, agree with what Gabe said, the salary and the additional staff, there's a different venue for that, and we'll deal with that at the commission level at some point. I'm curious though, you said that is it the Moab Office of Tourism, is it now that you've already pushed this budget through with them, was there any feedback or anything that you can share coming out of that meeting regarding your budget?
The advisory board?
Yes, yeah, and I'm sorry if I'm using the wrong acronym
I work
because,
within the Moab Office of Tourism.
Right.
With Mick and Ally, but the Tourism Advisory Board, incredibly, 100% supportive is really all that they came out. I can't say that there was really any questions in relation to the numbers, from that meeting. You know, correct me if I'm wrong, they all feel like that the work that the Film Commission does and the numbers that it brings in terms of impact, you know, from the people coming in that are not your other tour, like I said, civilian tourism stuff, they're just incredibly supportive. So,
okay, yeah, and I guess the reason I ask that is because some of the line items are increasing, a considerable amount, and I would think that we want to make sure we have the justification for that. And, we've asked departments to cut their budget, and this one's clearly going the other direction, and I'm not saying I'm not in agreement with that, because I do know that you bring in a huge amount of benefit to many of the businesses and locals in this community, so I just want to make sure that we have good, support and backup for.
I'm 100%, and again, just to reiterate that where the dollars come from at this point is different than it has been in every year past. I've been doing this over 10 years now. And it coming out of 3A versus being 42% of 33, I'm so totally, those numbers are not correct, but when it was, Fund 16, it was a different pot, and so this pot is about promotion and what 3A is, and so they actually asked me to put the numbers in. I had gone to MTAB and said, I'm just gonna move these lines over, and they said, please ask for what you think you need. And
Right.
so I did, and once I asked, I said, these are the numbers, they wrote the letter saying, we backed this up.
And I'm not questioning in any way the validity of them. I think of any of the commissioners, I probably have more experience working with the film commission at the state level and here to understand the benefits you bring into this community. So I'm just, because the numbers are changing, we want to be transparent. That's the reason that I'm asking is all.
Totally, 100%. I love transparency is, yes. Agreed,
And that's all I've got, Gabe.
thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I had a couple.
Yeah.
I'm just going through. So, the first is, I just looked here and so it looks like there's 12,000 and I'm not sure if this is on the actuals, if that's correct or not, for the FAM tours. How many, just how many FAM tours did we run this year?
They're not, they're, the word fam has been an interesting, it was a questionable line item to begin with, but, a lot of the work that is done that are location scouts and things are considered familiarization at this point, when, it's bringing producers in. I have a producer that I just took to dinner last night. It's done for Oliver Stone movies, and the photographer that's, it's like it's not specific to bringing in. I want it to be more specific to bringing in, let's say, the Location Managers Guild International, 4 or 5 location managers at a time, and taking them out and doing the things that as a special opportunity, but normally it's more, it hasn't been that. There just hasn't been, there was a couple months there that nothing could be done because of a transition in some of our other departmental stuff, so I sort of put on hold for things that I would have liked to have done this year.
Okay, so, but how many do you think, how many do you think that we would let? You know, just how many, I don't know about, you know, it looks like back, you know, the 2023, we had 5,000 that we ran there. This year, the last year we had 6,000, this year we have 6,000, and then we have 12,000 remaining in that account this year. And then if we look at, you know, we're asking for 19 again next year. And I just wanted to make sure that, are we running FAM tours? I mean, I understand FAM tours, but are these FAM tours that we're running, are they location scouts? Is there a difference between the two?
To me,
Or-
or one and the same, but I would like to be doing, I would like to be doing location specific, producer specific FAM tours that are, like I said, bringing people in and taking them out that is separate than what it has been. But to me, familiarization is different than it is for a tourism office, let's say, when familiarization to me is also the film trail marker things that I'm trying to sponsor throughout the state. Potentially putting in film related Hollywood markers with the city of Moab. You know, it's familiarization on all levels of the industry of film, having been here for 76 years.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get a number on that right there so that I can. It's a two-part question. One is it being categorized or is the chart of accounts correct? Should we have two different charts of accounts, and one should be basically scouting and then the other should be film familiarization tours? So one, like I was saying, like if you're bringing in a guild, you would bring in a guild and, you know, we'd bring people out and it would be almost like a set tour. These are the assets that Grant County has to film at, right? And we just kind of go around, as opposed to a scout, which I would think a scout would be like, someone comes in and like, I'm very interested in a rapid that's got a tower back here, and let's go back and then we drive them out to that location. I'm just wondering if
Yeah.
that would need to be separated right there, just for clarity.
I'm open to that possibility. To me, familiarizing someone with this with this area as a filming location, whether it be bringing you to a, you know, the most amazing waterfall or cave, is the same as bringing location managers to that cave and saying, these are the assets that we have here. So to
Sure.
me, it's sort of, they are.
I know
on the
that
same
and the reason that I ask is just, I just want to make sure that we're not taking jobs away from locals. You know, when we're doing that, right? If it's, because we do have location scouts here. I just want to make sure that our location scouts are being used for their purposes and that we're not hopping into that lane a little bit. So,
Yes, we have incredible location scouts and managers here, and I work with them on a, you know,
absolutely,
constantly.
Yeah.
And a lot of the work that the Film Commission does, because we are free service
Yeah.
to production companies, happens on the front end, and it's about inspiring those filmmakers to want to come and to decide to shoot here instead of shooting in New Mexico, or instead of shooting
Oh,
in
yeah.
Arizona, or instead of shooting in Georgia, or, you know, places that have a much better incentive program.
Yeah.
So,
I was just, for me, it would be helpful to have those broken down, but that's just a recommendation. And then the second one is just the, how many vehicles are inside of the Moab Office of Tourism right now?
there's one expedition that's like we call it number 3300, and then there's a 317. So there's two vehicles, but one of them is actually really just, it's not a good travel vehicle. It's not, I mean, it's not, it sort of was handed off. I don't even know why it
It's like a
exists. We
town
call it janky.
reliable.
I mean, it's not a reliable vehicle. I actually was driving back up from a meeting producers and directors, up the river
We
road.
got three rigs in there right now?
Two.
Two, okay.
And one is proper, and also the clearance of 3300. It's a road vehicle. That's like, people borrow it from all other departments. We have the library borrows it, the commission borrows it, the admin borrows it, because it's more of a, you know, fits 8 people, and the clearance, it's a fancier car. It can't do what the film commission needs are, which are going up and over Hurrah Pass, going up Onion Creek. It's not every day, but to be safe out there, and I'm primarily doing it on my own.
Mhm.
To have a vehicle that has high clearance and the safety capacity that it needs. That vehicle doesn't have it. I don't want to take that vehicle.
So you're taking your personal vehicle,
Huh?
so you're taking your personal vehicle.
Or I'm getting in a car with somebody that's in the production that's renting it, which isn't always the best. Or I'm putting someone like Mr. Costner in a vehicle where he's pulling up the window. It's on 317 because it doesn't
Like this,
do
the
it. Yeah,
personal vehicle, I mean, I think that's just a liability thing for the county, and I think you should have a proper vehicle, not use your truck,
yeah,
so.
yeah.
But I just don't know how many vehicles we have over there. So we have two vehicles over there right now.
One, yes, one usable, one that is pretty much just there unless we're going to field station.
And then just one comment for the record, and then just two more little things to clear up from the conversation is one is, I just think that the, you know, the raise and the assistant, you know, one should be probably handled by HR, and, you know, I will imagine that Aviva's doing a great job and has, you know, met these benchmarks, and it should be looked at, just from what I've seen and been inside the NTAP meetings. And then second, with the assistant is I would like to see that position actually be to wait until we actually have a director for that department for how they want to organize their department, right there. I think that would probably be the wise choice with that. And then second off, kind of speaking to what Bill had said over the increase right there. There was a lot of discussion on those increases and, you know, especially as it went to like the travel and things like that. So we did go through that in fine detail. And one thing is they were going to be trying to see if they could get some type of metric or some type of return on investment getting from these shows so that we can figure out, you know, which shows are producing and which shows aren't. And even more for the fact is as you go to these shows, right, you can be a sponsor, you can sponsor a lunch, you can sponsor you can put advertising out. And so, you know, just kind of whittling that down. So rather than, you know, casting this big wide net, maybe the shows that we are, you know, that we are getting, you know, these great contacts from and bringing films into Grand County, that we spend a little bit more and concentrate on those shows.
You're correct. You had brought up that question in the MTAB meeting, actually, and yes, to follow up on that, it's true. There are some of the events that are repeat.
Yeah.
And those levels of spend can be as minimum as, you know, just the registration and you're just there and taking meetings, or you can be sponsoring it and the levels can be, you're the title sponsor and it's $50,000, which Film Hawaii does that all the time. And the more you get the logos out there and the more you're repeating that, I mean, so money, there is the ability to spend more, and I try to do it. I always have more, you know, just doing it as best I can, being the brand itself in a weird way of being there. I totally agree with you.
And then I wasn't prepared, but what was the award that you just received?
Oh, yes, thank you. I was at the Eastern Utah Economic Summit and I received the Entrepreneurial Spirit Award, which was very sweet, and thank you, a very huge honor from them. And yeah, it's, you know, entrepreneur 10 years in, I love it. I think it's totally great, but it's very, you know, grit and bringing things in that are not normal to the area. And so it's a huge honor. And then just in relation to that, thank you. You had brought up also the benchmarks, and Trish, you had also asked about that. I also I had put in at the end of last year for the exemplary bump up, whatever you want to call that, and I did just receive that exemplary as well. So my next benchmark, I believe, actually starts in 26 for just actual years of service, but that exemplary was just awarded to me. So at some point next week, it's going to be reflected in what the next paycheck, having supposed to have been started in January, based on all the evaluations that were done through commissioner admin once the director was, when we stopped having a director. So
Perfect. Well, thanks for that. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, just a couple notes, would be like for, as far as the familiarization topic, if you want to devise, splitting up that 19,000 in a way that, Commissioner Martinez is suggesting, that wouldn't be a problem at all. So just be in touch with me if you have any ideas there.
We can talk about it. Sure.
And there could be, as far as the part-time staff position, that it could be considered to include that in the budget with the tacit understanding, sort of that administration. That wouldn't be filled until a director was hired, and so that would be kind of a clean way of doing it. And it would avoid an amendment, but either way, I mean, it wouldn't bar it from happening if it weren't included in the budget. And I guess one last question is, do you anticipate 2026? Is it too early to tell if we're gonna have a strong film year in 2026?
It's a little early to tell.
Yeah.
Honestly, but I do have some really interesting inquiries in the works, and I'm hoping that that they follow through. It's a really interesting time in the world of film in general. Not just because of the administration, but also just the way things are working it's a really interesting time. And so the fact that we had two really big projects that came to Moab, and it was the only place in the United States that these projects filmed, and everything else was outside of the United States because of those incentive programs that they offer.
Mhm.
But those two very, very large projects only came to Moab, was pretty awesome. And so I'm hoping for the same. I'm out there telling people that this place is real and that it exists. And even though you'd think that after 75 years of filming history here, or 100 years of filming in the state of Utah, that people would recognize that, but there's a lot of young filmmakers out there that are just getting to know it. So we'll see.
Great.
My fingers are crossed. And the ROI is a different subject too than, a tourism office going to somebody and having meetings straight back. I could be talking to somebody, and a project that I'm speaking to them about might not happen for 2 years or 3
Of
or
course.
5, or, the Godzilla one happened to be within a year. That was pretty remarkable.
Oh, I think we can figure out a metric that we could use, that we could say, I went to these shows, and even if it's 5 years, you might be able to look back at your past 5 years and say, this contact came from that show, this contact came from that show, and this contact came from that show.
Sure.
So.
Great. Well, it seems like we covered film pretty thoroughly. Thanks so much, Biga.
Thank you.
And we'll move right on to the category titled Travel Council Administration within the same Fund 23. And we have Ali Harford here to review this budget. She also provided a supporting material tab with exhaustive detail, line by line. Thank you so much for that. We'll make sure to include that for the record. But I'll let you touch on any key points that might be discussed here.
Yeah, so I've done my best to understand like the historical context of this budget. Obviously, 2023, 2024, 25, and now 26 have all been done by different staff. And so some of these have significant changes, and I can speak to those. But I'll just go through kind of line by line and put things out as we go. So dues and memberships, and all of this is broken out in our support material. We subscribe to a number of travel publications just so that we can keep an eye on trends and also see how Moab is being covered. So these are like Condé Nast, Outside Magazine, Wall Street Journal, and those are the 3 that really cover us a lot and often define how we're talked about in the media. And then we're members of a number of travel associations. Travel, I broke out a couple of different travel shows that we're planning on going to. Travel Media's IMM is going to be new for us. ITV Berlin, a couple of sales missions with the Utah Office of Tourism, and travel shows like Go West and IPW. And then see, professional and technical services. This line is changing significantly because previously agency expenses were coded to this line, but we'd like to just keep it clean and keep agency expenses in their relevant advertising lines, and so that's why it changed so much, so. Now, professional and technical services, we're only going to code, like our newsletter platform and a social media tool that we use to that line. So we're really just keeping tools, in that line now. And, let's see, creative services, we're combining this with advertising owned media because creative services often speaks to our projects. And so in this line, we'll have our branding and strategy contract with Camp for Tourist, as well as finishing up an owned social media project called Who is Moab? And then we have, we'd like to do more like recreation specific guides and content creation, and that is in this line as well. So I spoke to that at a commission meeting when I came with the gravel adventure field guide. So things like that. Let's see. Postage, we're doing a better job of advertising our travel planner that we ship out for free. And so, postage has increased a little bit. Travel shows. This line is changing from 75 down to 37 because we have 3 lines that can speak to travel. The first one is obviously travel. And so we want to keep all travel costs in that line. Previously, travel shows and travel were being used kind of interchangeably. Sometimes people would travel and then code it, can travel to a travel show and code their flight to travel shows. But for going forward, we want to code all travel expenses to travel, and then travel shows only reflects registration costs. So that's the change there. International sales missions is the same thing. So international sales missions will only reflect registration costs, and we remove travel expenses from that line. So that's the change from 40 down to 12. Let's see, brochures. Same here, postage for brochures was being coded to this line. That's why I was at 40 last year and now is down to 14.6. So now for brochures, we just want to code printing to that line. Familiarization. So our familiarization is done in 3 buckets. The first one is international efforts through the Utah Office of Tourism. Pretty much everyone wants to come to Moab, and so we often turn down familiarization trips just because of budget or time, staff capacity. But we want to have a little bit of a larger budget next year so that we can do more familiarization trips with the Utah Office of Tourism. And that is also increasing because we'd like to do familiarization trips just for Moab with our PR agency. So that's like, having a travel professional come only to Moab and write about it. And then we also have some in-house familiarization costs in that line now too, when our partners and stakeholders visit. Data. The data line is changing significantly. Last year's number was based on an overallocation of multiple contracts. There was a double up of our contract with Symphony and Tourism Economics, and a couple of other things. And so I gathered up all the contracts and looked at our actual costs, and our actual cost for data will just be our visa destination insights and CoStar contracts moving forward. And then Madden Media is also going to do the data, but just in the sake of keeping our Madden costs together, we put that into advertising paid media. So the advertising paid media line reflects recommendations from our media agency, Madden, and that's all broken out in the support material. And then it also reflects what we do in-house. So we work with the Utah Office of Tourism on their international marketing opt-in. So that is in paid media, as well as our billboard leases. And it wasn't asked by our advisory board to do more in-house paid media projects to speak to local events like Jeep Safari and how it'll be the 60th year, and also like local happenings, like the BLM's approval to allow class 1 e-bikes on certain trails starting next spring. So, we have a line item in the support material for in-house media projects. Advertising earned media. This was an exciting year for the MOT because it's our first time ever having a PR agency. There's a lot of support for our PR agency and we really love working with them. Obviously, we're doing a couple of projects with them on top of their monthly fee. So we work with them we pay them a monthly retainer fee. They have a set number of hours that they work for us. And then they do activations and other stuff projects. So that's all broken out in support material. And then advertising owned media. We want to keep our owned media projects in creative services because often owned media is like, you know, a social media video content creation that we will own. So keeping that within creative services, just helps us keep everything in the same bucket. Travel council grants is changing. This is the Utah Office of Tourism's co-op grant. So in 2025, we were awarded $146,000. Historically, we had been awarded $212,000 roughly. But that grant is getting really popular. And so we hope that we can get more match funds next year, but just wanted to be realistic about that number. Community engagement is our special events grant. This increase was approved by our board and by the commission. And then we assist the Moab Information Center with salary for a staff person. That's in there as well.
I really appreciate you referencing all of the cleanup on the given lines and just sort of
Yeah,
defining those really well. And I hope I'm sure you have those well documented and that'll be really valuable to the new director so that they can understand best understand the budget when they come on.
yeah, I
I'm
think
just scrolling so I can just see the percent sorry, I don't have,
Okay.
yeah, thank you, perfect.
yeah, I printed out multiple ledgers and combed through them looking for all of our monthly expenses and things like that and looked at past budgets and past support material and things like that. So all of these numbers are very realistic.
So what does that say? My vision still is too bad. What's the 26 budget inside of the 25? Oh,
It's
right there.
80%, yeah. 80.57%. Yeah, we did run into a situation where we were coming up to the fund balance limits for TRT and so there was certainly a big increase in 2025 in order to
Gotcha,
address that
Okay.
tension.
gotcha. Thank you.
Mhm.
There was also an increase on this budget right here as a recommendation from Gabe of where we should spend that reserve account down so that we're not in danger next year of going over, so that there's ample room basically for funds, you know, if there's something doesn't get spent.
Okay.
Also, there was a big problem, or not a problem, but one of the big expenses is the branding agency.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right, and so that was budgeted for in 2025, but ended up being in 2026 is when the majority of those costs will be realized.
Yeah, and I want to say I'm really appreciative of the engagement and activity of the MTAP board because this is a lot of money to spend. And you don't, you know, we are ostensibly in a situation where money has to be spent, but due to the activity and engagement of that board, I feel comfortable and confident that it's being spent responsibly because obviously that's paramount.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Any project that we do and a lot of travel shows and registration like that, we let go before our board as well.
The salary and the 3 positions, that's taking into allowance the future director, is that correct?
I did double check that and verify.
Yeah, I just wanted to make
yes.
sure that we are, because we all know that we're in that scenario, we'll have somebody here eventually, and I just wanted to verify that's what that was.
Mhm. You're right, and the change here from 403 in 2025 is because there were 4 positions previously in that budget.
Mhm.
Go ahead, Quinn.
How do you guys, just, it's something to consider is, because we got the film commission asking for a part-time admin assistant. What if we made a full-time admin assistant and had it serve both the MOT and the film commission?
Like I said, I think that's a great discussion for the new director.
Okay.
Right there. You know, I think however that works out, should be their vision, I think. But yeah, and then just a couple of things that I had, if you. guys-
That's all I have.
Yeah, so, one is the, fan tours.
Mhm.
I will just harp on, you know, I cannot tell you how expensive it is to go to these shows. Right, and then you actually get somebody, I mean, and they're hooked, and they come here and you don't do the fan tour, I mean, it really is the cheapest part of that deal right there, so. You know, it is difficult to get these people to take time out of their schedules to come see and, see these places, you know, worthy of including into their itineraries. So, I mean, I'm very supportive of, you know, anything with the fan tours right there. I also really, I thought you did a great job with the data split there. Because I do think that they're two separate datas, right? I think there's the data of how Grand County is doing, almost more of an economic development type of data, right? And then there's the data of who's the customer that we're trying to go after. And I think that those two being inside the same category are definitely different, so. I think Madden being able to, you know, just take care of, you know, the data that they're gonna need so that they can run ads that are targeted, and then the data that we have basically so that we can see how everything's kind of coming along in the economy. I think that was a smart move right there. And then the other recommendation that I just have for the record is just the 250 that's still in on the admin services. I think that we'd like to have that discussed with the commission.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I saw that number, thank you, Brian.
Just in terms of sort of bringing forth a tentative budget, which is certainly my duty, but absolutely, it does appear that that's, you know, gonna be a sort of a discussion to be had and refinement being made, so we'll just, we'll, in the next month before we adopt a final budget, that'll be taken care of.
That's good, I think.
I got chaos going on. No, thanks for.
Great.
Good job, Ally.
Yeah, agreed.
Thank you.
You're like, what's going on?
That's on your own.
This isn't my job.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, both of us, it's like I didn't handle the budget for the past number of years because the director did too, so it's like, I mean, I worked with them, but it's an interesting concept to go in and, you know.
Yeah, it's cool.
I mean, we know what we do and we spend and we need, but to actually focus down, you know. My joke is I'm a creative, I'm not a mathematician, but I think
Yeah.
that, you know, it's a really important thing
Yeah.
to have.
Yeah.
And I think that also, you know, there's conversations future with MOT having branding and PR. That film also is this screen tourism or film tourism part of that, which is 39% of people come to Utah because they saw it in a movie. Is a very large number. That's why you came to Utah.
Jeremiah Johnson.
Right.
I
I mean, sorry. Sorry. Hi, Albert, my
I
favorite.
know.
But yeah, I mean, that's like something that is in conversation, but that of course is more money to be giving those agencies to help. Get the news out that about the screen tourism and film
Yeah.
tourism part, and it's just. The capacity of this human gets a little, it's hard to do all of those things, so I think it's just one of the, that's why we're working together, you know, we're not a team, but we're a team.
Yes, yeah.
So, it's great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, and I know they're gonna discuss your salaries on another thing. But I'm not gonna be part of that conversation, so, you said you work, which I said, believe, you work more than those 40 hours to 80-hour work weeks, or pay periods, do you track your hours?
Do I track them?
Yeah, so.
Yeah, I mean, I put it all in, I just don't get,
That's what I'm trying to say, so just for the support your increase, because you're running comps, but also you can take into account all the hours that you're not getting paid for
right,
to make it.
True.
Trish brought up like fair,
I'm happy to
I
pull.
think people should be paid for what they're working. And so you're not receiving overtime, you're not receiving that kind of stuff. And there's certain positions that are salary based, that they work a lot and they're not receiving that overtime where some other people are. And so to keep it fair, I think it's important to track those hours. Where you're also gonna present that to your commission, say, look, these are all the hours that I'm not even getting paid for.
Sure.
And so this is why I'm
Yeah,
justifying the
good
increase for my salary. Because I don't get paid for these hours, so to make it fair, like everybody else, you know, I'm being compensated for that time.
That's a great, I
Yeah.
can go in and pull every one of those timesheets up, they're all in the.
Just-
on the front,
just
so that- I
like-
like that idea, I mean, I never thought of
Why,
that.
it's
When you
just
say, when it says 115, not 80,
Right.
which is.
Yes.
That's
Pretty much every week.
Yeah.
advice, because
Cause yeah,
a lot of people that are on salaries, they work those 40 hours, they go home, they don't answer their phone.
that is a good justification.
So
Yeah, cause it's a large increase, right?
so I'm just
Yeah.
trying to, that's what I would do.
Yeah,
So
yeah, that's a good idea.
Cause these guys, cause they're gonna do it at a different meeting and at that amount, I would provide them as much
Yeah.
information as you
Sure,
should to
yeah.
justify that increase.
Thanks, I will do that. I'll find the best way to do that, That's great.
All right, well, before we move on to the next presentation, I just wanted to make sure AJ or Chris didn't have any comments regarding the film or Office of Tourism budgets.
All good
Uh,
here. Thank you.
Thank you. Didn't want to forget you. All right, well, thanks, Biga and Alex. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Gals.
All right, we're gonna move on. Let's see.
Very good.
Public defender,
I got wait for it.
I didn't hear you.
Wait till you try the brownie version,
I
Brian.
had the brownie versions. I had one of those last night, but I was surprised how good the cinnamon rolls were.
Sweet enough, I'm basically a free diabetics. So.
all right, so I've Associate Commission Administrator Quinn Hall here to discuss this public defender category, which is in the general fund. And there are a couple of revenue lines also in the general fund that relates to public defender services. Certainly this is a essential cost, essential service in some ways is what could be looked at. And the funding mechanisms have been sort of in flux in the last few years and the structure of how it works. And yeah, Quinn, I'll let you describe what you know about where things are at now and perhaps into 2026.
I do know that because this is a county requirement, a statutorily required service that the county provide, the budget can vary wildly, as you can see, between 23, 24, and 25. The county is obligated to foot the bill for these services, so no matter what it fluctuates at, we're gonna have to pay for it. It makes it difficult to budget for, though, and budget for accurately. We do have the Indigent Defense Council has granted us $50,000 every year for the partial salary reimbursement of a managing public defender.
Say that number again, sorry.
I believe it's 50,000.
Okay.
And so those services are changing. So we as a county won't directly receive that $50,000 anymore. But the IDC or the Indigent Defense Council will hire a managing public defender for the southern half of the state. So that 50,000 still benefits us, although it won't hit our books in the next year. It will go directly to the salary of that managing public defender, whose services we'll still get, we just won't have to pay for it. So that person will be an employee of the IDC, not the county, and they'll serve as the managing public defender. So that throws some of the revenue a little bit into question. I think that revenue will go off. We won't see that revenue next year, is my understanding, and that is still kind of, we're in the middle of those discussions right now, so. It's kind of changing.
We also won't see the expenses.
No, you're right.
And then. Sorry, if I'm so. Okay, that's, and then you have this public defender grant. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's the IDC grant,
Okay,
correct?
okay,
But why does it have more revenue than I thought we were getting? And that's a question I'm
Right.
not 100% clear on that.
So I think part of the reason is they operate on that state fiscal cycle, and my guess is that this big sum that we have here in 2025 and the low amount we have in 2024 reflects that due to whatever the cycle of payment was, that you know, we ended up getting a lot of 2024 or in 2025. It's kind of what it looks like.
Okay,
It sort of adds up.
Yeah, fiscal.
Yeah.
Oh,
And so, but that, I mean, it does, and so I guess what you're saying is when we had previously sort of been around this 128, 130 range. But that did include the 50K for the managing public defender. That might leave us at something closer to 60, 70 for this year. Is that something that would be valid to put into the budget
for revenue,
for revenue for this grant? So like 128 minus the 50 that won't be funding the managing public defender?
that's a good question. I wanna go back and look at the grant paperwork. My understanding, based on the conversations that we've had with the IDC so far, is that the grant revenue will basically be going away, but we'll still have a managing public defender, but we won't be seeing the expenses either for that, for those services. So while we're losing the revenue, we're also losing the expenses of that
Basically,
position.
just zeros it out.
Yeah,
But we still get the service, but.
still get the service, but we don't get the
They're
revenue.
covering, they just eat the grant.
Yes.
They just take that, but they provide the services.
So I think tentatively, based on the conversations we've had so far, I don't think we'll be seeing any revenue for the public defender
And so should
from
we,
that IDC grant next year.
so should we remove the 90,000 in the managing public defender line? Or
That's for your expenses.
for
Yeah.
expenses?
But are we gonna end up, and I guess that's an unknown, Gabe, I'm sorry, at this point, in our conversations with the IDC, I don't know that we need to pay any of the southern Utah managing public defender's salary. I don't think that's been made clear yet.
They've never brought it up in a
They haven't,
conversation,
right?
but I don't ever remember asking them when
I
I
don't
was there
remember that
either,
either.
because we really hadn't drilled down on it like this.
And we were, cause when we had that meeting in here with the IDC and we all met, we're all excited that they're taking on that managing public
But
defender
we
role,
didn't
but I
get
don't,
into that.
we didn't get into whether we were gonna have to pay for it. So let me send a few emails and I'll try and clear that up.
Okay. And can we enter in I see your note here for 50 or 60K.
Because I thought, and I do think the grant was for 50,000 a year, and so that's why I thought that was off, but if
Okay.
you're saying that that's for multiple fiscal periods, then that makes sense.
Right.
because we don't have any other grants. That's the only grant.
That's the only grant I'm aware of, yeah.
I just would like to include something in here, you know, by like Monday or Tuesday. You know, just, well,
Yeah,
this is revenue that we know we'll receive some amount and just an
They're
estimate
pretty
will be.
quick to respond, Matt, and
But will we receive revenue for 26? We'll receive revenue to. That's my question, I'm not sure we'll receive revenue for 26, if that
Yeah.
revenue is going to offset the expenses of a managing public defender
Okay,
that we're not paying for.
right, they're
The
gonna
IDC
use
is
that revenue in-house.
So I think the appropriate number for 2026 is 0.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Well, but you guys, you got fiscal, you guys had the managing public defender for part of the year. Their fiscal year, so you might receive something.
Half the years.
We might
5,000.
get revenue for July through December.
Right.
yeah.
You might get something, I mean, it sounds like probably just need to contact them and see where.
Yeah, thanks, if you wouldn't mind sending out a note,
Okay.
and seeing if there's something that'd be appropriate to include. Yeah, hopefully, the new format and the new, sort of. You know, these mechanisms and the support from the IDC, the Indigent Defense Council, will, you know, allow us to, of course, improve that essential service and. Potentially, hopefully keep the costs, controlled.
And I will say that in the absence or the slight decrease in services or the kind of the changeover from the prior managing public defender to the IDC taking over, I think Mark and I have both realized what a key role that is, because it's actually a lot to keep track of. Like there's a lot to keep track of. And it's a lot of stuff that I'm quite frankly not familiar with when it comes to public defender and all that.
Yeah.
All the conflict of attorneys.
Yeah, that's why.
It's a giant ball of confusion.
That's why your numbers can fluctuate so much.
Yeah.
You have the one contracted public defender.
Yeah.
But if he's conflicted out, you have all of these other that are throughout the
Yeah.
entire state that they're gonna get paid whatever
Yeah.
they get paid.
And to be clear, we would appreciate a little follow-up on whether there are any grant funds expected to be received and whether we should budget expenses for a managing public defender, those 2 points.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments? Okay, thanks, Quinn.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Short and sweet.
Yeah. So last on the agenda here is the non-tax general fund revenues. I put together, kind of an idea of what the tentative budget is gonna look like. It's kind of pulled from my current working doc. And so we have a number of categories of revenue in the general fund. That would be 3,100 taxes, 3,200 licenses and permits, 3,300 intergovernmental, 3,400 charges for service, 3,500 fines and forfeitures, 3,600 miscellaneous, and 3,800 contributions. The first category is taxes, and there is an array of property tax related collections and different categories. And Treasurer Kaufman kindly whips up some projections for the following years for those tax revenues. And I don't know, Chris, if you wanted to comment real quickly on your methodology. It's an average, you kind of average out what those incremental increases tend to be or something of that nature.
Thanks, Gabe. It depends on the type of tax that we're talking about. The big one, which is the general fund taxes that are coming in from real property and personal property, is pretty straightforward. The tax commission has a final budgeted revenue amount, which is the amount that is budgeted to bring in for the current year. So I use that as the base. So the 2025 amount that the tax commission has budgeted. And then I do a calculation to add in a little bit of new growth, which we do have every year. And I am using I believe a 4 or 5 year average of the past year's new growth to add that in. So that one's pretty straightforward. Some of the other taxes, most of them, I do an average of what we've been seeing over the past few years, or if it has been consistently increasing, then do an average of the increase and apply that to it.
Thank you very much. Any questions regarding that? All right, and then I do have some grayed out lines in this current presentation, and those are sales taxes, and we are eagerly awaiting the next distribution of sales taxes to hit so that we can sort of present in the tentative budget revenue projections that reflect all of the data that we can possibly have. So we're waiting on that. Maybe they'll even hit today.
It already hit this
They did?
morning.
Ooh, all right, good. Cool. And so that's why those are grayed out. And the purpose of this current presentation is to discuss those non-sales tax. And then next week, we'll touch on those sales tax revenues. So yeah, I just put in notes for most of these revenue projections just to discuss, how they were derived, for some of these licenses and permits, which are related to, fees, assessed by departments that are outlined in the consolidated fee schedule that's updated every year. I found that, just kind of a 4-year average is pretty effective in terms of coming up with a number that is pretty well in line with sort of what's happened historically. Certainly planning and zoning has been, hasn't been very fully staffed this year. And so that would explain some of the low number, for example, in that department. And I also pulled out 2021 because it was a very high year and it just kind of was throwing the number off in a way that I didn't feel was appropriate. But yeah, it's nothing more complicated than that when I indicated 4-year average. And let's see, this was also, there's this federal PILT. I'm just gonna write a note because that is another projection that Treasurer Kaufman provided. Let's see, and then we have a number of revenues associated with specific departments, and they're given grant programs or reimbursements or state funding programs. And those estimates are either provided by the department heads. They definitely know best you know, in terms of what their operations are gonna look like and what the funding sources are going to look like. And so we rely on them to prepare those estimates. There's the economic development grant. We still have that housed within the general fund. There's been some talk about reopening Fund 16 for the economic development director activity in that grant. I have some hesitation about that. I'm still thinking about it. If only because it's just opening up another fund for relatively a little bit of activity. You know, it's probably the right thing to do, but yeah, I'll come up with my final answer in the tentative budget, and that can obviously still be massaged even after the tentative budget is complete. There's yeah, let's see. There's only a few that, you know, I'm still seeking more information on, including this SEU ALG SHIP grant that we haven't been receiving the past couple of years. I wonder if it's defunct. But otherwise, there's pretty much Moab City and Moab Dispatch. What I have currently entered is what Moab City has contributed the past 2 years, this 84,974 number. I reached out to Commission Administrator Tyner to see if there would be any updates regarding that figure. But I feel like it's probably safe at this point to go with that number.
That's it.
Expense reimbursement, and there's another one, we'll see miscellaneous revenue. These are a couple lines, like we really try our best to avoid budgeting with sort of they're more or less miscellaneous, they're kind of squishy miscellaneous lines. But it's just the nature of the way funding comes in unexpectedly throughout any given year. I think really does require us to have a code in one place where we can dig into that code and see all those revenues that hit individually and categorize them. But ultimately, you know, a line like expense reimbursement, even though we're not sure what we're gonna get, I think we always, you know, there's a historical precedent for reimbursements ranging from 64 to 181K. Over you know several from 21 to 25. So I think it's appropriate to include a placeholder of 75,000 that we would expect to receive in funding from basically kind of from unknown sources at this point. But I think it's a fair way to go about it. Oh, and I guess I should flag this. This is that 60K that was in the public defender budget that we just saw. And so I should probably I'll just go ahead and highlight it here, just so I know it's, this figure might need adjusted. And as you can see, a lot of the actuals happen via transfer, or there's some sort of timing that happens at the end of the year. So that's why a lot of the actuals show 0, because we don't really make the transfer until the sort of all the year's revenues have hit in February, and then we go ahead and make the transfers based on what actually happened. Charges for service, it's kind of somewhat similar to licenses and permits in terms of revenues associated with specific departments. Estimates provided accordingly. This is that administrative fees line that is definitely under discussion. So that's currently just a placeholder in the tentative budget and will be expected to be adjusted. But the breakout of where that derivation comes, I did include in the packet also just info sheets for each of these 4 assessments, just so there's some background on how those were derived. And so those are all the charges for service, fines and forfeitures. As you can see, I just went about creating these averages and especially just verified if they look agreeable with what our recent trends have been, and entered those in as a fair estimate. And trying my best to just provide a little bit of detail in the description line so that there's at least some reference to where these are coming from. The interest revenue is expected to be a little less as our fund balance is shrinking, and then we also did we also implemented the interest allocation policy And so in the past, we had just been pulling in all of the interest revenue across all funds into this line. But now that we have a policy for distributing that interest, this interest revenue here is specific to the general fund revenues. Evaporative pond monitoring, I learned that was a facility out in Danish Flats, that is being potentially is being converted into a landfill. There was some revenue associated with that on an annual basis, but that's discontinued as an evaporative pond.
It's interesting, they just took all that, when the lithium well erupted, whatever you call it, burped. They took all that, out to that pond, so you'd think that, it's interesting that they would get rid of it. You could keep it there just for
Hmm.
for the heck of it.
That's interesting.
That is
I
interesting.
didn't know much about it.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One note, the rent from the state for use of court facility. I'm not sure if Dana Lee had mentioned that there's that would be potentially due for an update of some sort. I might just be making that up. It has remained static for a while.
For district court.
Yeah.
State,
Yes, but that's where that revenue comes from. That's the,
I can get in touch with.
Okay.
Their body. See,
and one thing I can say, there's I think an intergovernmental, there's this Department of Motor Vehicle Revenue. And I do know that that the Utah Association of Counties has reached out to myself and to Assessor Swayze, and we're doing some analysis as far as like determining the cost of sort of the assessor's office and its capacity as the DMV, and it seems like there's the potential for us to potentially get an increase there based on that.
That has to do with different counties registering at your office, is that correct? Is that the bill that we're talking about?
Oh, I didn't even know that it was related to a bill. I didn't get,
There was
yeah.
a bill that passed and it had to do with people who are out of county who use your services, so we do stand to make a little bit of money just because of the people who live in San Juan County who use our deal.
Right.
So.
We sure would appreciate that. I mean, it's a really important service. It's a high activity window, so it should, be something that we should be willing to bear, I think, but more help from the state is always appreciated. Here's that other miscellaneous revenue line that I referred to where it doesn't actually, it's not necessarily referring to revenue that I know is occurring. But given the very consistent activity on that line, I think it's fair and safe to budget to receive something in there. And this makes me feel like this actuals line, I didn't update it for this purpose. I apologize. I'll have to update that. And yeah, this is kind of the form that the tentative budget will take. And so I'll make sure actuals and all of the figures are updated for that purpose. It's going to be a much improved and more digestible document than we've ever had in the past. There's been deadlines that we've always displayed in the budget, just lines that haven't had activity for years and years and years, and it just makes the whole thing make your eyes go crossed when you're looking at it. And so I'm just taking the time to tighten these documents and these presentations up so that we're getting what we need to know. Once the sales tax, once we build out our revenue projections and in the tentative budget, there's this line here, contribution from the general fund surplus. And that is the amount that we budget to pull out of reserves to have a balanced general fund budget. And so until we have those revenue projections, which make up the sales taxes, that's going to give us a baseline for what the general fund revenues are expected to be. And that will in turn sort of help me determine in a tentative budget compared to all the expenditures in the general fund, where we're at as far as the draw. I would say that preliminarily it looks like I think it's safe to say that we're not in a doomsday scenario, but nor are we drawing even with projected revenues or expenses. So somewhere in between. I hesitate to even throw out a number, but so I probably even shouldn't. We'll definitely look at it next week. My goal is to, it sounds like revenues hit today. My goal is to have an active working sheet of the tentative budget for the budget advisory board members to view early next week. I want to get that to you all as soon as possible. It's a lot of work putting it together and making sure it's accurate. But I'd love to be able to give you all a few days before we discuss or just see it all in one place. But this is going to be a big line that we'll look at and discuss certainly with that budgeted contribution from the general fund. And I'll include some information about what we've actually historically drawn versus what we've budgeted. Any question?
That'll also possibly bring up some discussions of further cuts that need to be made somewhere. Will it not?
Yeah, the budget advisory board will, I certainly think it would be valuable if there were any specific or blanket comments regarding the BAB's position on sort of where the commission might look for reductions if needed.
I have a couple, just these are maybe more, I don't know what you call them. I guess you could say they're political statements, whatever you want to say. One, I noticed with the building permits, right, we're projecting a fairly large, and I've stated again and again, I'm kind of concerned about the building department and the inspections, and you pay for a permit so that you can get inspections, and we're not really providing those services very well. And I know that contractors, I've had numerous contractors come to me and state that they're having to hire their own inspectors. And so that's just again a statement. Hopefully we'll be able to rectify that situation. But that being said, I would think if contractors are having to hire their own inspectors, that we would reimburse them a portion of their building permit. That's just, I'm just gonna state that. It's something that we provide for that fee. And if we're not providing it effectively, I think we need to, I'm just gonna say that, especially when I have people coming to me like, what are you guys up to? Dispatch, where are we at with dispatch? Any comments? You guys have any kind of update on Moab, City of Moab dispatch?
Sure. Leave ComEd, City of Med.
Okay,
Where that has gone,
don't know.
you have
So-
to ask the sheriff that question.
So in theory, am I wrong about, okay, okay, we're working on it. So no actuals for 25.
So.
Okay, but it's something I think we should keep working on.
Yes, I would highly encourage them.
Okay.
We provide services to
Yeah,
many agencies.
Right.
As well.
right.
So-
And all the other agencies.
I've noticed that the
They've either
the
paid or
NPS
they
is now
left.
not, the NPS is now not using dispatch, is that correct?
Yeah,
Right.
right,
They switched it to.
Right.
yeah. So,
Which is something I think a lot of folks should know, because it's
yeah. it was,
Yeah.
I guess
Definitely
difficult, so.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
so, 'cause they utilize dispatch a lot. On radio traffic through harness and national. So, yeah, no, it's
Okay.
something that should definitely
okay.
pursue, but that's gonna be the sheriff conversation.
Yeah. And then Bill, this might be a question for you. I noticed like the airport leases, but we also just, gave the airport a very large sum of money for the paving to the private hangars. And if my memory serves me, they're gonna pay impact fees when these they build. And I don't think we've ever seen, I'm just throwing this out. Have we ever had any kind of a contract with the airport regarding that yet, or an MOU? Because we gave them the money up front, and I did ask Stephen, like, hey, are we gonna see some kind of contract or MOU? You don't know. So should we put in projections for revenue for those impact fees? I'm just throwing that out. Like a small, I don't know if it's something we ask the airport director. Because they said that it would be paid back gave us kind of a wide range of years, I can't remember, 5 to
10 is what I.
10.
I do.
So then we could say, well, we'll estimate that we're gonna have 60 grand a year. So I'm just wondering if that's something we should put in as revenue. I don't know.
I do think where the commission passed that, based on that understanding, we should memorialize that in writing.
Yes.
Somehow,
I-
I'm not sure how, but we haven't done that before, but.
I asked Steven and he said, yeah, he agreed. We should, like
Yeah,
you
cause we
said,
kind of want to
memorialize
future
it.
proof that. Yeah.
Yeah,
I do remember Steve Gleason saying that he was either interested in or in the process of an audit of what was going on already. Just to go ahead and check all the hangers that we have right now. So I would imagine that would be part of this, that process as well as here's what we have, here's what we're projecting
Right.
into the
okay,
future.
yeah.
When
So,
he
yeah.
presented his budget, he had issues because the one airport lease number had dramatically decreased. I don't know where that ended up.
Okay.
but
Yeah,
so-
so he said he was gonna run a lot of it. to-
Okay.
So,
So yeah,
Figure
just
out
a
why
couple
that number
thoughts.
is so low.
exactly.
Okay, yeah, a couple thoughts on that. I do think it'd be good to get something in writing, and then that being said, I also think, well, we assume we're gonna get a portion of that back per year, and do we add it as a revenue line item?
Yeah,
Projected,
I think it would be good to add a dedicated revenue line for
Okay.
that, so we can track it in a really clear
and
way.
we call, I think we're calling those impact fees, is that correct?
Mhm.
Okay,
And did that come out of capital?
Yes.
So we would want to make sure that it then goes back into capital. I would imagine.
Actually, I don't know about that, Gabe, because it's airport fees, they might have to stay at the airport, or I don't know if that is considered a loan, we'd have to put a loan,
Yeah.
basically MOU together to.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think that was one of the reasons that the commission considered that,
Yes.
voted on, was because it would be able to come back to them.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah,
yeah, well, I think it's important that we get that on.
put a document together on it.
When we do that, I think we should make sure that we account for the net present value of that as well.
okay. Do you wanna spearhead that or just?
I'll email Steve right now.
Okay, awesome. I have talked to Stephen about it. He agreed that we should have some kind of documentation. Okay, that was it. Super.
I had just a couple of things
Yeah.
real quick. One is so do we have all of our grants then listed under the intergovernmental or all of our larger grants there?
Ones that are assessed, or administered through the general funds.
Okay, so.
Yeah.
So then, like all of GCAT's grants, they're not listed in this?
Correct, those are, because those have such a restricted nature. Yeah,
And then just having listened to the some of the trail ambassador, program as that's moving off. If they don't become their own nonprofit in time, they'll probably end up having to pop in under another nonprofit. And so that OHVR grant then that we're receiving, we'll have to probably, another nonprofit will probably have to invoice us for that. I don't know if that's something that we should be listing on here. Just for that OHVR grant, which is gonna be a little bit different.
it sounds perhaps like a situation that we would just amend when it happens. When and kind of a when and if, unless we get more information within the next, more very clear information within the next month.
Mhm.
I mean, it wouldn't, what you're suggesting wouldn't result in a net. Would it result in a net overall impact? It would kind of zero out and we would kind of serve as a pass through or something.
Correct, yeah.
In that case, I'm not that concerned about
I'm
it.
not either, but the question is we will be retaining part of those fees,
Okay,
right? Because they're basically gonna be splitting their department up right there.
yeah,
And so as that grant comes in, part of it will be retained in the county, and then the other part will be going as a pass through. So I didn't know if that belonged inside of here as well. Either which way, I mean, as it happens, I mean, I just think it's something we need to keep our eye on.
Okay.
And then the second is as we kind of go through the TRT and TRCC right there. I see that we got the museum right there, and I've always had a little bit of a question on that. I know that, in the new HB 456, I mean, there was all this language about, using restricted funds to give even to the city of Moab. And what would have to happen with that. I do have questions on using restricted funds to be given to a nonprofit, especially since we don't have an audit function with them. Right, there's nothing that we do to make sure that those funds are spent, the way that they are supposed to, with the restrictions that we have on it. And especially since our mitigation costs are already so high, right? I do think that we could balance that out by just basically increasing our mitigation cost and then paying for things like a nonprofit of the museum out of the general fund. Does that make sense? And I don't know if we shouldn't have maybe even a policy on that or something like that, which is the idea, and that may be something that the commission would work on, of using restricted funds outside of the county.
Yeah, I'll say that I was in my tentative budget.
Go ahead, sorry.
In my tentative budget, I wasn't planning on, myself including a allocation to the museum, not to say that I don't do or don't support that.
Yeah.
But that was one of those ones that I was probably just gonna, the mitigation side of TRT in my tentative budget, I was probably just gonna put it all in the law enforcement line.
Right.
And just as a way of almost like a placeholder of what that amount is gonna be, and then allow the commission to really make the decision there.
Yeah, but yeah, and it just makes sense, and I know that's, we did it last year, it was like, we gave some over for. We gave some for OSTA, we gave some for the airport, we gave some for the museum. And I'm just wondering if that's the best way to do it. I mean, I know that just my experience of going through like
Yeah.
OSTA's budget, it's like they have money coming in from here, money coming in from here, money coming in from here. And one of those things actually has money coming into it, so we're actually doing a complete circle where it's coming from here, it's going over to here, and then it's going over to here. Yeah.
No, what you're saying is, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's a little cleaner.
It would be much cleaner.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
It wouldn't be
interesting.
that hard to create a legal based policy on using restricted funds.
Mhm.
Because there's
Yeah.
already law, on it, so.
Correct.
Yeah, the structure was always a little weird.
I encourage policies,
Perfect.
very important.
I know, you're going, of course, I'm sorry, I know,
My life. is
By the book.
policies.
that's right.
Well, I got a roll. I don't want to stop any more discussion or comments that need to happen. But I'm gonna get back into sort of getting this tentative budget prepared and lining up our final, potentially final meeting the next Friday.
Wow.
And
Well, it's been a year ago.
a good run. So,
Thanks.
seeing no objections, we'll go ahead and adjourn this meeting. It's 10 a.m. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.